your first question was something like, "What's the most important cause?" or like, "What's the most important way to have impact?" And we talked. Jan and I talked about this a little bit, and we came to the operationalization that I suggested was suppose that you have a like brilliant genius, like a 21-year-old, like IQ 180, like very smart, like I don't know what like IQ 180 is, like one out of that's at least 4 standard deviation. It's like it's a very smart person, like one of the few geniuses. There are not that many smart people on planet Earth at any given time, and they come to you at the age of 21 before they have any specific skills, and they're like, "All right, you Eli or you Jacob get to decide what I do with my career." Aside from the considerations where you might be like, "Hey, I think you should use a better procedure for making this decision than ask Eli or ask Jacob," what's the thing that you tell them to do? And in particular, Jacob was like, "Well, there's like a bunch of things. Like it seems like a tricky question. Like maybe AI safety research, maybe rationality stuff." And I think it is a tricky question, but I would say definitely not rationality research. I think that is not the best place to allocate your like one of your very few genius people. So that's like our setup. Like, is if you have a IQ 180 person, they can do whatever. Does it seem like a plausible choice to have them do rationality research for their career or not? Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that has to be operationalized.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so we might try it and we'll be like, yeah, of course we agree about this. Okay. All right. So the first crux for me is if I thought that allocating that person to um, doing rationality research would be like counterfactually impactful for X risk, then I would think that that's a good thing to do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I imagine that's a similar crux for you, although maybe you have other considerations.
Yeah, so you're asking me whether. So we're just talking about rationality research now, and not technical area safety.
Yeah, so personally, I could. It seems like the first obvious choice is you have them do technical AI safety, but I could imagine other things that are contenders for that. For instance, and maybe this is a thing that would be included under rationality research for you, is it seems plausible to me that having that person spend their career figuring out coordination is a better allocation of your genius. You get one genius for AI safety, you get one genius for coordination, and that's like the way to do it. I'm not that confident about that, but that like seems in the running. Doing rationality research seems to me like a thing that you do with your like 15th genius, maybe.
So is this like being hired by CFR?
I would hope they have a better plan than that. Like probably, like I don't know, maybe they do something like CFAR for a bit, but if I'm imagining a rationality researcher, they are doing something closer to what Daniel Kahneman did, but like with a more direct focus on developing methods for clearer thinking.
Yeah, so when I imagine them doing rationality research, I imagine something like introspecting on their own mind and when that works well, and doing lots of training and testing to teach that to other minds.
Okay.
Which is very different from the kind of Kahneman academic, systematic.
Okay, so I want to come back to that in a moment. But first, is it in fact a crux for you that like the impact that it has on X risk? Like if you found out that the other option was just definitely better for X risk, that
Yes.
Okay, cool. So double crux.
Write it down.
Oh yeah. All right. So what's the first one? That's right. All right, but you were saying the thing that you're imagining is not like trying to be a cognitive psychologist. It mostly involves introspecting on their own process.
Partly, yes.
Oh,
Like I can't for certain make any claims about whether it's mostly introspection. But yeah, what Kahneman was doing seems a lot to me like identifying the departures of human rationality from like utility maximization and Bayesian reasoning, and then also like coming up with a descriptive framework which from the outside predicts human choices,
yeah.
as opposed to which from the inside gives you kind of generators and handles and techniques to perform it. And then you might say, well, Kahneman seems to have been part of like a broader project, which he was just beginning, and we're talking about the ends of that project, etc. But this seems potentially tangential. Like I'm curious about why this doesn't seem like plausibly counterfactually the most important thing for X-rays to do, or something like like the question is like what other options are we considering, and like what probability that this is in fact the best option would you assign? Because lots of what you're saying sounds to me like it's like less than 10%.
Yeah, definitely less than 10%.
Cool. Yeah, if I thought it was, I'm not sure it would change my mind if I thought it was like less than 10% that it was the best option. Because I also have to know like, well, like what are the probabilities on the other options being the best? Maybe we have like 15 options, and the best candidate only gets like 11% or something.
What's your current like estimate for just doing technical AI safety?
For it being like the best option?
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't. Something between like 5 and 40%. I can narrow that down by thinking more.
Yeah. That sounds about right to me too. I'm also thinking. I don't know if it's in the majority, but I would. But certainly my current best guess is it is the plurality. It is the biggest chunk, single biggest chunk of probability mass. Although I am recording it with the thing, so it'd be good if there's a blind sight.
How's that?
Otherwise,
Are you in frame?
Also note that I am recording this conversation. This is not even for internal CFAR use. This is for Eli use only. I do like to analyze conversations that I've participated in and like try and figure out how I can have done them better. So the only person that will see this is myself and the hackers that see all of our files anyways.
Cool. Yeah, so you were just saying that like you think technical AI safety is probably the thing with the single most probability mass, even though that mass in and of itself might be only like 10%.
Yes.
But all the other options have even less than 10% mass on them being the best choice.
Yeah, that's right.
I am in agreement with this.
Cool.
Yeah.
My second thing would be something in the space of coordination. Like, it seems plausible to me that there are figure-outable, like there could be a theory of coordination in the same way there could be a theory of agency, and that no one has really tried for this that hard, and that, yeah, this is a bit of a tangent.
Seems pretty plausible, but doesn't point at anything which would change my mind about this.
Yeah, right, but, okay, but currently I think that doing rationality research, and we should operationalize this further, it's just real low on the ranking, and you're like, it seems like pretty, at least comparable to technical AI safety research.
Yeah, so I'd say like it's certainly one of my top 5 options. If yeah, So if I believed it was like less than 1% likely to be the best option, I would change my mind. So other options are like, well, doing coordination research, um, doing research on like how intellectual progress happens as a community rather than as an individual. Other things like I do, potential like macro strategy, like how to prioritize issues.
Yep. Okay, so yeah, so I could imagine all of those being more like the claim that I want to make is that I don't know what the best thing to do with our genius is.
Yeah.
My best guess is currently technical AI safety. It could also be macro strategy. It could also be coordination. I would be somewhat surprised about the figuring out group intellectual progress, although that also seems like a very important question, but I don't think it's what I would use one of my key geniuses for. The only claim that I'm making is that all of those seem like maybe comparable, and rationality research seems way below those to me. Like, it's not in the same order of magnitude.
Yeah, so I disagree with that.
Cool.
Can you tell me more about why you believe that, and we can maybe find the crux?
Yeah. One thing that I want to say here first is that does not mean that I think that that genius should not analyze their own intellectual process and try and build tools for themselves. I would definitely give them that advice. I think it's just a performance multiplier. But there's a different thing for, like, there's one thing you could imagine, which is a person who's working on an object level problem and trying to build tools for themselves, and also like sharing those tools to the extent that's possible, and a person who's like their object level project is just building rationality tools.
Yes.
Okay.
So are they allocating like 10% versus 90% of their time to developing better tools? And are they primarily focusing on building tools for themselves versus tools for others?
Yeah, closer to that second one. It's even plausible to me that they should spend 90% of their time is a lot, but I'm not totally shocked if they should spend 90% of their time developing tools for themselves. But yeah, are they mostly focusing on building tools for themselves, or are they mostly focusing on building tools for others? Like, I'm not sure, for instance, what percentage of Eliezer's, I don't think even this question would make sense. How much Eliezer spent time focusing on the object level AI safety problem versus building rationality tools. It seems like mostly the things dovetailed, and you try and solve the problem, and you can't solve the problem, and you're like, you go meta and ask what would I need to have done this? I'm speculating about the process.
Yep.
Okay, but you want me to tell you why I am pessimistic about rationality. Okay, so
can you bring the whiteboard closer as well?
cool.
Just good for you.
Maybe bring it. Just put it here.
So I claim, and I want to know if you disagree with this breakdown. I claim that the rationality tools that we currently have helped in basically three ways. And then there's another question of whether or not there are other sorts of tools that we haven't discovered that could help in some way that's not connected to these. One is recruitment. Huh. Interesting. Is that an alarm?
It is.
Where Eliezer writes the sequences, many people read the sequences and get turned on and become agenty about making the world better. This is certainly true of me. My guess is I'm assuming it's true of you, but I don't know.
It's not true of me, no.
Interesting. All right, I want to follow up on that later. But you're aware of this as a thing that happens.
Yes.
Cool. So that's one category. Another category is you make the individual people more effective in particular make your individual researchers more effective. Um, I'm sort of importing some assumptions there where I think that mainly it makes our researchers more effective, and because so far the people that we have recruited are mostly either researchers or movement builders. But yeah, make something like team members of the world-saving team.
What is the difference to recruit?
What?
Oh, more effective, yeah.
Yeah. And then the third thing is potentially raising the sanity waterline such that people outside of the world-saving team make better decisions about crucial things that. So like this is when at some point. So this includes like when someone is deciding whether or not we should like run this AI or not. Like what sort of decision process are they using? Are they thinking about cognitive biases? Are they thinking about their incentives there? This also includes like countries deciding whether or not to go to war and like what systems are in place there.
Right.
So this is raising the sanity waterline, but it's the high end of raising the sanity waterline. I'm like, where are the places where the crucial decisions are made? Is the decision making process in those spaces improved? Yeah, so first question is, does this seem like it would capture, does this breakdown seem like it misses anything important? Like, I could imagine changing my mind if there's some category here that...
Like, just to paraphrase, you're saying, like,
Yeah.
rationality as it has been developed in the rationality community over the past decade
Yeah.
has, well, we expect it to primarily have had an impact in three ways.
Yep.
Which is by finding lots of great people and bringing them to work on important problems, by making those people more effective while working on those problems, and by like making it such that places in our society where important decisions are taken
Yeah.
are more likely to take the right decision.
Yeah.
Um,
That seems...
yeah, so it certainly seems like it's brought in lots of great people. I'm very uncertain about this one. I have very little evidence, and I have like lots of uncertainty about this one as well. But I'm more confident about that one.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. If I'm thinking about either the sequences or CFAR workshops, I'm like, this has just obviously happened. This, it sure seems like it's happened, but like, it's hard to tell compared to the counterfactual. I don't know if this has happened at all. Someone pointed out to me that like maybe 10% of all the people that work at the NSA have read the sequences. I don't know what that means.
I'd bet against that. I'd bet against it for like 90%
Does this include culture?
Does it include culture?
That's what I would expect here.
I'm not sure what you mean by culture.
Like the epistemology and some spirit of cooperation, things like that.
I think yes. Yeah, I'll go with yes. Okay, yeah, so...
Yeah, I might actually add the fourth one to this, which looks something like building infrastructure, which is kind of like setting up a bunch of organizations and ways for money to flow and talent to flow, such that like in the future when important things need to happen and important problems need to be solved, and like promising people appear that they can like end up in the right places and we can coordinate in the right ways. And that doesn't seem to be captured by these three.
Which is something like you found a CFAR so that when there are people who want to contribute to rationality stuff, there's like a place for them to do that.
Right.
And if you found you found open film so that like you have these smart people who can analyze the world and figure out what to do, and like there's a lever that they can figure out which things are good to fund.
Right.
As opposed to I'm Carl Schulman, I'm great at figuring things out, but I don't have any power.
Yeah.
Carl Schulman has like a lot of power.
There's like lots of things to say here, most of which are tangential. So like let's
Yeah.
try to tie this to like what Crux are you getting at?
So I would be curious which of these, if you were allocating a person like our genius to developing rationality tools, which of these do you think would be most impactful?
So the question is like, what should the genius be spending like the majority of their time on? That seems like certainly not that one.
So it might be that they spend, like, they might be doing one thing that has all of these effects.
Yeah.
But I would want to ask the question of, like, we put them in this position, and they do their thing, they're doing rationality research. What is the thing that you expect downstream? Like, what's the main best thing that comes of that?
Yeah, probably the two middle ones. Like this one interfaces a lot with like your expected amount of time to work on until X risks become like unsolvable.
Okay. Yeah. So one crux I could imagine is yeah, if I thought that there was centuries until okay, let me think about that. If I thought that there was centuries until like major technological changes, not necessarily AI, but like a bunch of disruptive things, then I would definitely be focusing on. I would definitely want to allocate our people to building traditions that like can develop the tools necessary to like basically make there be parents in the world, make there be people who have the capability and the motivation to make the world safe robustly. And I would feel a lot more optimistic about telling a person to go into rationality research as opposed to technical AI safety research if I knew that was the case.
Like I don't think. I mean, so it crux for you if we expect the most severe risks to be most probable hundreds of years into the future or something. And like, well, if I'm not sure if this is much of a double crux. Like, if I expected AGI to be developed in like 5 years, yes, that would cause me to change my mind. But like, I don't expect us to meet at like a number which is see for both of us.
Yeah.
That's a,
well, yeah. So I was trying to think what the cutoff was. I think at about 50 years, something like 50 years, I'm more. Certainly I feel like there's like a threshold. 50 years seems like enough time to not just build a subculture, but build like a tradition of people. Like now we have multiple generations of people trying to refine the art. And I feel more excited about someone doing rationality research if we have 50 years for it to bear fruit than if we have 30 years. 30 years sounds like we had to rush. My guess is this is not where this is one thing we can discuss, but it's not the most productive double track.
No, it doesn't seem that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you were claiming these two things are where the. All right. So. Up to Jacob.
What kind of question is that?
I'm wondering if you consider creating mirror culture as also like low or high impact.
Creating mirror culture, I think that's very high impact. Yeah. I'm mostly So that seems to. This is one of the things that CFAR does. Is it influences mirror culture for good or ill, and I think this goes under the make team members more effective. Yeah, okay, so my claim, I don't understand, this is the most interesting one to me, because I don't understand how better rationality research leads to this, so I'm flagging that. This one, I expect that there is low-hanging fruit here, but that there's a pretty hard ceiling on the benefits that you can get, such that, there's low-hanging fruit here, but there's a hard ceiling on the benefits that you can get, such that if you did this as successfully as possible, sorry, as I'm saying this, I'm not as sure about it, but I'll finish my sentence. It still doesn't buy you an existential win. Whereas if you did technical AI safety as hard as possible and it just worked, you were like, yep, here is a complete alignment theory. Here is how you get it to work in neural nets. I'm like, okay, we're not safe yet, but we are like 90% of our problem just went away. Now we just have to like not fuck it up in the final hours where we're bickering about how to build the AI.
So I would, yeah, I think I'm likely to change my mind if I believe that like tail end success scenarios on this thing doesn't cause an existential win.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that is. I also want to talk about this one, but I think that is also true of me. If I thought that not just that there's low hanging fruit. I think there is lots of low hanging fruit, but that like the most successful, the best case scenarios are much better than I think. That would cause me to change my mind. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. Double Crux. How good are the best case? Yeah, you wanna. How high is the ceiling for making the world-saving team members more effective? How good are the best case? Can I quickly just ask, like, what's the causal mechanism for this? It seems to me that, for instance, the founding of CFR is a sort of special case, but the founding of OpenPhil and ADK and like most of the orgs are not contingent on having better rationality tools, except insofar as the better rationality tools led to recruitment.
I was interpreting the question more like, what has the rationality community accomplished? So given like the tools framing, there's certainly much less of an emphasis on this.
Okay.
I do think there's like a bunch of important social technology. I think I could think of examples, but it's pretty tangential.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So let's focus on this. All right. Yeah. So the basic reason why I think this is true is because IQ is so predictive. That we live in a world where, like even in the operationalization of the question, I think that so much comes down to, like, just did you get, like I sometimes say, this is definitely a simplification, but I sometimes say, like, your work comes down to the number of Paul Cristianos you can create or recruit, and that, like, so much of the important work, particularly in the pre-paradigmatic phase that we're in now. I don't know as much about, like, the later phase when it's, like, more logistical or something. It's just dominated by IQ. Like, you just need to be really smart to make. Yeah. Most of the work is done by a few geniuses. And you're not able to make geniuses by rationality technology. I believe that's the best statement of my point, but
so rationality technology here is like there is like internal changes you make to your own mind, as opposed to say web apps.
no, both those things. Like, I think Connor White's like Rome, I think it goes within rationality tools. In fact, I think that's more promising in a number of ways because.
Too much is.
I didn't want to interrupt. Yeah, I interrupted. So what is the cap on IQ gain you would set on rationality techniques and like apps?
I don't know.
Is it like 5, 10, 20, 30?
My like median estimate is like. I think it okay. So I think it is actually kind of a misleading question.
I know.
Because I think actually the thing, rationality as I the rationality technology that I know about does three things. It makes people like moderately more effective because they like get better sleep and they like implement taps so they have better habits. It causes people to make better decisions in a few crucial decisions in their lives. Like they like know about goal factoring, and so they like they have better decisions about which career to take. And like some specialist tools for like solving specific problems, like which is sort of like a subset of the first one. Like I don't think we have these tools yet, but just like people have blind spots and their like potential is just a lot limited by their blind spots. And none of these are of the sort of increasing people's IQ. These are like people have potential that can be unlocked, and this allows them to do more stuff, but it doesn't really make them smarter.
Yeah, so I was asking, operationalization would be if you have a person with IQ 160 without any rationality or web technology, like any really smart tools.
Yeah. I don't.
And the less like lower IQ person with all those things. How lower could the IQ be so that it would be comparably productive in AI security?
Yeah, can I check if this is relevant for...
Maybe it's not relevant. I was just like asking for one number if you don't have it this time.
So you're trying to get that like, well, if you have like an unaided genius in some sense, and then you have another world where you have someone who has less cognitive hardware, but they have this super genius who allocates all their time to just building tools for this person. Like how much can you decrease their hardware before they become like equally productive? That's pretty relevant to me as well.
Okay.
And if we knew that, we could like figure out the distribution of geniuses and like lots of details. And
Okay, can I draw a picture of that situation? So in one world, we have also what's your time?
So in 12 minutes I have to pay money to Trump. I keep doing this.
Okay.
Because I have to iterate my class, and I knew this would go on for too long.
Okay, so in World 1 we have genius. I don't. And no tools. And in World 2 we have a genius. Same brain. I know it looks bigger, but it's just
Building tools.
Yeah. Yeah, he makes tools, and he gets to use the tools, so it's recursive, right? But like, the main benefit is like everyone else who's drawn a different color is they all get rationality smartphones or something. Which, like, as a side note, I do feel more excited about like making software apps because people don't use the tools they have and you have to train them and no one does the training. But if you design less wrong such that less wrong like causes people to naturally implement better cognitive patterns, that seems like it's much more likely to have an impact than telling people and even training people like you should use taps or whatever. Like we're pretty good at that and still like people don't use the tools they have nearly to the capacity they could. Okay, yeah, so there's the question of the difference between these worlds. Yeah, so this world looks to me like a pretty big waste of a very scarce resource, which is our geniuses.
It sounds like basically.
Okay, cool.
Like, I mean, because this world, you know, is so much more scalable than World 1.
Yes, I agree. So I agree. Like, our tools are like getting around a lot, but our bottleneck is the genius. Like the thing that makes it a big difference for success, I'm claiming, is like these tools don't give that much of a boost. The thing that really gives you a boost in like getting existential wins is your genius, and we like threw one away here. Threw it away is a bit harsh. And this is just my restating the.
I think we might find the double crux if we get a bit, more at like what's like the equivalence point or something. So you have like this is like 180 IQ super genius.
Yeah.
then the question is like, what number do you put in each of these ones, and how many before we expect these ones to be?
Here's something I would have to think more about this before I would commit to it. But I am definitely tempted to say I would trade Paul Cristiano for a CFAR. Or excuse me, I would trade CFAR for Paul Cristiano. I would rather have a Paul Cristiano than have a CFAR. Such that if someone asked me like which one would you get rid of, I would say CFAR. And also if someone asked me you can have a Paul Cristiano equivalent, but you have to trade away your CFAR, I'd be like, okay, I'll take the Paul Cristiano equivalent. I don't know if you would make that trade.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. It's like definitely not as clear cut. If I thought that you trade away CFAR to get a genius equivalent, if I did believe in that trade-off, then I would change my mind.
That is like an operationalization.
It's like a super big irreversible thing. So I need at least 95% confidence, which I don't have.
Well, it's irreversible in like there's status quo bias, right? It's irreversible in either direction. I agree that you should not take unilateralist action for
that's a good point. Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, yeah. So could we find a double crux on why?
That's another double crux as well.
Is like, would we rather trade Paul Cristiano for CFAR? I think that's like an operationalization, but like operationalizations are contiguous with double cruxes. Okay, cool. Yeah, you want to write? Would we rather have a CFAR or would we rather have a Paul Cristiano?
Is that a double crux for you?
Yeah, if I believe that like you can duplicate Cristiano by getting rid of CFAR, then I would change my mind.
I'm not claiming that trade is on the table.
Sure, well, if hypothetically it were, I'm not sure I would push that button.
Yeah, and I would push it. Cool. Great, okay. And also I would change my mind if I found out that I shouldn't push that button, that would basically effectively change me all the way up. In fact, I think it's a more extreme case because I think that CFAR is a lot worse than our hypothetical genius making rationality tools for output.
I was wondering about that because we don't have Paul Cristiano.
That's right. But I can, so one thing is I can imagine Paul Cristiano doing CFAR. I know a lot about doing CFAR, and I often think about, not Paul so much, but I often think about if Eliezer was trying to do my job. And that's, I'm often like, oh man, there are people who are much better at my job than I am, at least some parts of it.
The thing is, you write down they prefer one CFAR or one Paul Cristiano.
Yeah, that's
One additional.
Yeah.
Do we want to have one CFAR and one Paul Cristiano, or two Paul Cristianos?
Yeah, two Paul Cristianos.
Sorry, Paul's Cristiano.
One of both or two Pauls.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we're specifically. I'm not sure that having a literal clone of Paul would be better because, but we take a random
equivalents.
Yeah, Paul equivalent. Right. Like where a Paul equivalent means for me, one of the according to me, there are two. We're in this pre-paradigmatic space. Most people don't have good ideas about AI safety. We don't even know where to start really, and there are approximately two people that have an idea of where to start. One of them is Olive Miri, which I'm calling a person. Mostly, I mean, it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Scott, or who do you mean?
Eliezer plus Scott plus Benya plus Nate, but none of those people are as smart as Paul Cristiano, I think, in terms of just raw IQ, although they're all much smarter than me. Do you
guys want to high five about it?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the audience can also help me pay my Trump bounty. I should
we could also regather another time. Okay, so... saying there are two. We're in a world where basically no one has any idea how to solve the most important problem in the world. We're in a space where we don't even really know where to start. There are like sort of two guys, like literally two guys who have an idea where to start. One of them is Eliezer and his posse, which is not quite fair because the posse also had some ideas, but he got the ball rolling with that sort of approach. And also we got this Paul guy, and he's starting to get a posse. And I'm like, man, I really, really wish we had more guys, like more than two. Yeah, I'm just again stating my view.
Is it true that Eliezer got us our focus?
Excuse me?
Is it true that Eliezer got us our focus?
Yeah, approximately. He wrote the sequences. Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of recruiting more Paul Cristianos. That's like my favorite thing to do.
So how many Crux? Like,
Yeah.
like is the time in this world where I want to vote until you gain?
Oh, yeah.
Is the time in this world until you gain another C4 because they meant it because they need it smaller than the time in this world where you get like another PC because they have it?
Okay, so the question I thought you were going to ask was, how quickly does a C-FAR pay off in terms of a Paul Cristianos?
Yeah, which of these ones most quickly get to another PC?
Yeah, okay, so obviously if I thought that a C-FAR...
And also, like,
Yeah,
what's
okay,
the
so
absolute gradient on the
Alright,
project?
so you got two worlds. You got a world where you start with two Paul Cristianos, or a world where you start with a Paul Cristiano and a C-FAR, and you ask, which one gets to 3 Paul Cristiano equivalents faster?
Plus, like in the meantime, this one is going to make more progress.
Yeah, right.
So we have to take that into account.
Okay. Great. That's okay.
How many 100?
Hold on, I'm thinking. Alright, so here's another picture. In one world we got a Paul and a Paul, and in another world we got a Paul and a C-FAR.
Yeah, I don't really see Just sit there. We're filling up my time.
Okay, and then there's the question of like, how quickly do you get 3 Pauls? And like whatever the Pauls, like how much production have they had in the meantime? Versus how quickly do you get to 2 Pauls and a C-FAR?
Jacob, you have 90 seconds time.
Cool.
Alright, yeah, so maybe we should make a plan for
Wait, I have this one.
Yeah, okay, but you're gonna leave in 90 seconds, or maybe.
Well, I'll leave now, because otherwise I have to pay the front.
Bye.
Alright.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eli. So I can take my spot.
I appreciate your...
I claim that we need to